Alrighty, folks, what's going on? This is Matt here for Dark One Linux Tech Gaming, which is the fusion of Linux technology and gaming. And I swear you guys want to give me an ulcer before my midlife crisis. So this particular video is reacting to a request from somebody about this person. I'm going to get it right out of the way. I do not like this person. I do not like their content. I do not like their character, etc. I'm just going to be really blunt about this. However, I'm going to try to set all of that aside and push aside disdain for somebody and who they are and what they produce content-wise to see if the information provided is even remotely good, because generically I find this particular person's content not so much. So let's get into Chris Titus talk, to the Titus Tech talk, whatever the hell his secondary channel is. I really honestly don't care, but I'm here for your, I guess, amusement for me to have an ulcer. So let's roll into it and find out what Ding Dong has to say. Hopefully it's halfway intelligent.
I moved from using Debian-based distros and went to Fedora. Couldn't be happier. Yeah, I feel like there's a good there's like that spectrum of distributions. You have for desktop distributions for just normal users. I would say there's Debian, which is more on the stable side of things and kind of like the tried and true. Most guides are written around it, more newbie friendly, I think. And then you have Fedora, which is still a stable release, but it also has much newer packages than Debian. It moves a little faster. The kernels constantly update, so the kernel never really stays the same. So you get a little bit newer stuff. And then you move to Arch, and Arch is obviously your bleeding edge where everything's brand new. As soon as something's patched and released, within a week, it's probably going to hit the Arch branch. So there's that.
Okay, so I gave him a full minute almost. Him not talking about me interrupting him. That's some willpower, guys. Not gonna lie. So let's take what he says. Debian is the stable, tried and true, older packages, blah blah blah. You're correct. How old those packages are is debatable, depending on the branch of Debian you decide to go with. Insert distro choice here. So is it based on, whatever current code name for Debian stable is, or is it based on testing? Is it based on unstable? Pick your poison. So if you go with testing and unstable, they're going to have newer packages. Shock. So nuance in the shit you present as information is usually nice. As far as Fedora, not a Red Hat guy personally, just not my flavor. Everybody has their preferences, but what I will say is he's actually correct. Newer packages, all that kind of stuff. Totally we'll give him that. My problem with Fedora personally, and this is again personal, is the factual statement that there's essentially yearly upgrades to Fedora, more or less. The actual support window varies for the most part, but it 38, 39 as it goes. And that's no different than Ubuntu, and that has the short-term releases in between its normal LTS releases. I'm not slagging that. However, there's also the upgrade potential where that can brick, but that's on any distro or any OS, so I'm not really throwing shade at Fedora in that regard. For me, Fedora is just not the recommendation, but factually, he's not wrong. There's just yearly upgrades. Go with what you will on that. Newer packages, newer than Debian, however, depending on your flavor of Debian. As far as Arch, you're right. There are going to be stuff that will be in the Arch repos within a week. There is also stuff that is not in the Arch repos within a week. Or else, if that was the case, we wouldn't need the fucking AUR. And for anybody who wants to argue about what the AUR is, but it still uses Arch user repository. The AUR is Arch's version of Ubuntu's PPAs. You can argue with me about that all you want. Personal package archive. Arch user. Personal. Works in between. So the fact of the matter is, yeah, maybe, possibly, potentially. Is it going to be probably in the AUR? Yeah, but that's a user thing. Is it probably going to be in a PPA for like Ubuntu because it's based on Debian? Probably. So it's kind of a moot argument, honestly. And as far as like newer packages and stuff, with things like Flatpak snaps and app images, newer like packages for apps is becoming quite frequent and quite irrelevant to that whole argument. Now, as far as new kernels and stacks and all that stuff, that's where you find the nuance and the difference. So if you had said just specifically kernels and Mesa and that kind of stuff, yes, you are correct. I will give him that. You're talking applications and other core elements, probably not so much.
There's that spectrum, and depending on what kind of user you are, you might be a Debian user, you might be a Fedora user, you might be an Arch user. But I feel like those are the three main distros that everyone should try when coming to Linux. And depending on where you land in it, that's kind of my thought process when I think of choosing a distribution. It just depends on what my goals are. If it's game.
The goal is to get a functional fucking OS on a piece of hardware. That's the goal. And for that OS to meet your need. That is only goal. So for me, or most users, I'm not like, why am I going to try to fit square peg round hole? If the OS don't work on the fucking machine, this is where distro hopping, where I do tend to make these recommendations, is gonna probably be up your alley. You can mitigate a lot of that by actually knowingly and sharing that knowledge, help people choose potentially the right distro. Not always going to be 100% accurate. There's no way to actually ever be accurate. But what you're suggesting is basically with the only 3 distros, even though you've said that distros don't matter. You're saying 3. And I would argue no. Probably 7, 6, 7 in that, depending on how you want to view certain distros. So you mentioned Debian, you mentioned Fedora or Red Hat, RHEL, and you mentioned Arch. I would probably stick in Ubuntu because it's sort of Debian, but it's basically its own, almost own fork at this point, as far as its own ecosystem and everything else, as far as what's built around it from a community perspective, and the distros that are based around it, as opposed to core Debian, because Debian packages don't always work in Ubuntu, blah, 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 all that stuff. I would Slackware Gen 2. I mean, you could probably throw in OpenSUSE if you want to, because that can technically be its own thing, because they have different implementations and different ways of doing things than, say, RHEL and all the other stuff. So it's relative. But as far as like what your base systems are, you got 6 or 7. As far as which one to choose, each one's got a different purpose. The Arch way of doing stuff is not the Gen 2 way of knowing an OS. So and the Gen 2 way of knowing an OS is not the Slackware way of knowing an OS. So because each one handles the underpinning OS differently. So I kind of find that as not a valid argument, because Gen 2 is going to get you more down and dirty and more nitty gritty than probably Arch will. Slackware, I would say, again, these are just personal interpretations of how I view them. And this is why I'm not saying these are fact. Slackware would be more if you want to understand how packaging and whatnot, and essentially DLL and all that stuff, like the dependency stuff, works on Linux. Arch is very much and I'm using this very impolitically correct and probably piss off some Arch users, but it is a much more, I would say, simplified way of understanding what Gentoo tries to do, which is get as close and down and dirty to the OS and code as possible. That's the interpretation I would give. Gentoo is if you really, really, really want to know an OS. Arch, if you're looking to build your own. Slackware, if you're looking to understand how dependencies work on Linux, it's a great alternative. And then the other ones, Fedora, Debian, and etc. All those are more end user friendly, and that's relative based on the distro and how it's made and blah, blah, blah. But those are the cores. So I think you have a very short, skewed view on OS selection and what each other one does that you don't mention. And that's not counting the independent distros like Solus and Chaos and all the other stuff. So just saying, like if you're going to look at it and what each one does, at least look at it, what each one does, and be honest from the general perspective. There are 6, maybe 7 different ways and core distros out there.
Gaming and that type of thing, definitely like a Fedora or Arch would be my my suggestion. But if it's more productivity based, more business oriented, obviously I'd lean heavily on Debian. It just, like I said, it depends on what kind of user you are, and that's.
What about the hardware? That's the simple question. If it's gaming, I'm going to recommend Fedora, except for most new users, common sense users, regular users, Joe Schmo, people who view these as being tools, computers, and technology as tools, are not going to jump through the hoops to get the NVIDIA drivers working, regardless of their Fedora's philosophical stance on proprietary shit. They've done better, I will say that. But at the end of the day, if you're going to run NVIDIA, I'm not going to recommend Fedora. The out of the box experience, the initial setup, all that stuff is not going to be what other distros like Pop! OS, Ubuntu, and all the other ones that actually ship with NVIDIA flavors of drivers in the ISO do. And that's just the reality. Now, if you're running AMD hardware, different story with Fedora. So for me, Fedora is going to be one of those distros I'd recommend if you're going to go that route for gaming or content and creation or whatever. If you're an AMD guy, for GPU, CPU, because you're going to want the Mesa improvements, you're going to want all that stuff. Same argument I make with Arch. It all depends. So it's a more nuanced argument, and you're glazing over a lot of the pitfalls and the other stuff, and just kind of making blanket statements that aren't fully fleshed out. Just going to be real.
And that's kind of where I'm at. What do you think of OpenSUSE Tumbleweed specific? I know a lot of people have a lot of good things about OpenSUSE to say. It's just too niche for me to ever recommend it. It's not a bad distro. It's just, I don't really find OpenSUSE to be great, but it's not bad either. It's just kind of meh. I don't think I'd ever want to run it as my main just because it's kind of obscure. And
I'll let Cubicle Nate comment on that one, and I'm just going to leave that one alone. I'm not an OpenSUSE guy. And I would say if you're calling like the open build service and all the other stuff that SUSE as a company provides the community, and you're calling it obscure. Well, might want to look in and see what companies use it. Just gonna leave it at that.
And it's kind of where I'm at. Like I said, I'd stick to those three that I labeled, even though I know there's a lot of people that do really like OpenSUSE. What's your opinion of Kali Linux? Is Debian testing based? Do a minimal install of it and build it up? I mean, why not just use Debian? Why not just use regular Debian testing? Why would you choose Kali Linux unless... I mean, Kali Linux to me is just like someone in the getting into the security realm, but doesn't know a lot about Linux. So they're just kind of want a good tool set to break into some of the security aspects of, becoming like...
Kali Linux is specifically tailored to pen testing. I'm going to probably butcher it, but I think it's offensive security that works on Kali. Like the distro has packages and built-in stuff that is not available in Debian, that is not evident in Debian. This is buying the pre-made toolbox, sure, but it's a high-quality goddamn set of tools that are in the pre-made fucking toolbox. So to brush it off, see, this is my problem with people like Chris. Distros don't matter until they do, until you understand the thought process behind each distro that is actually built and why it's built. If you're playing off and swiping distros under the rug for niche stuff, then you're an idiot, because you apparently missed the whole fucking point of what Linux is supposed to be about, and the fork and the, all the forks and derivatives and everything else. It's the whole fucking point. Scratch your own itch. Right now, I just want to punch a bitch.
Becoming like a security researcher or something like that, or an ethical hacker. That's who the Kali Linux crowd's for. It has a good tool set for that niche. But if you actually know Linux, like, why bother with Kali? You would just install Debian and then toss your Metasploit, and I forget what the other tool set is that Kali Linux gives you. It's been a while. I don't do much ethical hacking, so I couldn't tell you.
I don't do much ethical hacking. I don't. So like it's a distro not tailored for you. Novel. The whole point is, yet again, that you miss, is distros are tailored to certain things. So I'm really trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, but we're 3.5 minutes in here, and I can't help him call him. Gonna be good. Gonna be good. It's really hard though. You're wrong. And if you don't understand that each flavor, for the most part, there are just, reskins and new wallpapers, and we're a distro. However, a lot of the distros are specifically niche. A lot of the distros fill a role. Right now, you're just filling never mind. You're just filling my head with a bunch of stupid opinions that you're passing off as fact.
Tell you, but I just, that's my views of all these splinters, and I get tons of emails like, try my distribution. I'm like, dude, it's just Debian with some extra packages. Like, why? Like, I think you could eliminate 90% of all these forks in Linux distributions and no one would blink an eye. It's just facts.
My face says it all. No, the facts are, and the facts really are, that you don't understand the ecosystem. I'm not saying the ecosystem perfect, far from it. There are distros and the reskins and all that kind of stuff. Sure, they might not need to be around. But if you're going to tell me that things like LibreElect aren't niche, but have a very specific function, or Chimera OS, or any of that, which ironically, you featured Chimera OS, which is and how to build your own Linux gaming console, which ironically I did that well before you. But anyway, the point remains that you missed the fucking boat. But you're the Linux guru expert here. Give me a break. Like, it's not, some of these are not just as simple as, oh, just install the packages yourself. See what Kali Linux does and offensive security does. Like, I don't know how else to put it. Like, that is such a stupid statement. So many levels. Like, there's dumb shit. But, like, is your entire body covered with assholes? I mean, you're a giant asshole anyway, but so I guess saying you ooze shit wouldn't be too far off out of every pore of your being. I just can't deal with stupid. I'm sorry, guys. I can't. And I've made stupid, and I'm not saying I haven't made stupid statements or any of that stuff, but like, god damn.
Yeah. You know, yeah. That's what it is. And you know, it's fine. Like I said, distributions, all they really are is a package manager. So is it using apt? Is it using zypper if you're OpenSUSE? Is it using DNF or yum if you're doing a rel-based distro? Is it using Pacman or the Paru Yay for Arch-based? You know, that's the package manager. And then when you get into the actual meat and potato of the distribution, all it is just a culmination of decisions that have been made for you in packages that are installed with the package manager. Okay.
Unless you're ignorant and don't realize that Kali ties a lot of tools that are not there. Or I believe the other one at one point, and I could be wrong about this, was Kick Studio. I'm not sure if they're currently still kicking. It's been a while since I looked at them, which is a multimedia distro that has tools and whatnot that has Jack working for you. So you don't have to set it up. Not everyone needs to be a fucking goddamn. God damn, I hate this guy. Not everyone needs to be a fucking goddamn programmer to run a piece of tech, dude. Like, so seriously, you show your elitism, but it's like ignorance in that elitism and ignorance that you spew. Like, I just don't get it. Like, I don't get the draw to this guy. I really don't. So for me, what irks me is the fact that he's downplaying the importance of those niche distros, that doesn't understand why you can get rid of certain distros, sure, that a lot of those distros play different parts in the community and fill different roles. This person's role is just not even understanding people in general. And I'll be the first to admit, I am not a fucking people person. I generically hate fucking people. Hence my discard and disdain for this person. If, again, I haven't made that obvious. But, like, are you Linux? Like, you know, somebody had a channel at one point, and they asked the question, do you Linux? Or does it Linux? And in this case, do you Linux? Because I don't know. Like, for me, what I've seen is just ill-informed and bad advice all across the board.
Hey, you gonna go KDE or are you gonna go GNOME for the desktop environment? Okay, pick that for you. Do you want to go with this? That's all distributions are in Linux. It's just someone making those decisions for you because you just don't know what decisions to make. So,
bro, I know exactly what decisions to make when I want to install an Arch-based distro. I'm not looking to do it all the time, every goddamn time. So yeah, the pre-compiled options Novel are a time saver. So do I run it? By the way, I run Arch. But do I install it the Arch way? Fuck no, I use Garuda. Because I just don't give a fuck about setting it up and doing it every goddamn time for every new machine. And it's not because I don't know how. It's just because I have better fucking things to do. Unfortunately, somebody thought it'd be a better use of my time to sit here and subjugate myself to your stupid ass. I guess I could say I was the idiot for that one.
So when some people distro hop, a lot of times they don't even understand this, and it drives me crazy because it's like, dude, you went from like elementary OS to Pop OS. It's the same damn thing, just with a different desktop environment. It's the same.
It's not the same damn thing, you fucking ever-living chode. Pop OS includes shit that fucking elementary would not. That the end user shouldn't need to know nor need to care about. They don't need to know about GCC and libraries and all the other bullshit. Like, if you want to talk about Linux distros not mattering and just being an application platform for people to use shit, you might have some solid fucking feet to stand on. But this ignorant take that you have, they're all the same, is because apparently you don't understand that each distro does something different. And they're precompiled for everyday people. And because you have your head shoved so far up your own ass and have your own version of tunnel vision with your head poking out your fucking penis because you like to blow yourself, apparently, then you don't get everyday users. And I'm a Linux guy, and I'm not a Windows fan, and you're supposedly the Windows and Linux expert, but you can't see a perspective of like how actual people use shit where they just view the stuff as a tool to get a job done. Wow. Just wow. You are the brightest bulb in a room full of dim bulbs. And you're the only one in that room. Like, seriously. So you can shine some light, but goddamn, do you cast a lot of fucking shadows that kind of obscure the actual details that you fail to actually talk about. When you actually look at examine it, actually look at technology, talk about technology as a whole. God damn.
The same package manager. You literally could have uninstalled that desktop environment, install it over here, configured a couple things differently, and it'd be the same. It's like so maddening that people think Linux distributions are so different. They really are not different. Most of them are just based on Debian, if we're being honest. Like, Debian has most of the forks. I think they're up to almost 1,000 different distributions forked off of Debian, because Debian is inclusive of Ubuntu, which is forked from Debian. And God knows how many forks of Ubuntu there are, forks of Debian. You got MX Linux, you got Parrot, you got Kali Linux earlier in chat. I mean, we could just sit here all day naming distributions based on Debian. And that's the thing that drives me most crazy about like the Linux desktop community. It's like a lot of people don't even understand the base. It's like, why? Just, it's Linux. It's Linux. It's just a package manager with just a couple different things reassociated. It drives me bonkers. And people just don't get it. They just don't get it. It drives me nuts. Most guide.
So what drives me nuts is the ignorance level of you not understanding that every distro, for the most part, not every distro, but most distros, fill a niche, fill a need, fill a role. And the lack of understanding of that is mind-boggling to me, who for somebody who claims to be an expert, who makes their own distro and blah, 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 whatever. It's just different packages. Apparently you don't understand that not everyone wants to build their shit from the ground up. That's all it boils down to. And if you're too fucking stupid to see that, which apparently you are, you miss the point of Linux. You miss the point of how general consumers use fucking technology, apparently. And the only thing that's maddening more than anything else in this entire thing is hearing you spew such stupid shit as it's fact. It's just knowledge. It's just what it is. And it's like, bruh, it's not what it is. It's your limited viewpoint on it. Sure, have it. Doesn't make it right. Just like when I say there's probably 6 distros, 7 distros, that's just my viewpoint. It's not necessarily right because I might not consider independent distros as a base distro, etc. So it depends on how you want to view it. And I'm not arguing that fact. What I'm arguing is your lack of nuance in your argument, which you have so much shown that you don't have. So lack of nuance. You have a lack of nuance, you have a lack of understanding of the overall ecosystem, and you have a lack of understanding of computer users. The only thing that you know how to do is go get fucked. Because you're an idiot. I just can't. And I gave you guys like a good 5 minutes before. I just can't. I just can't. So many levels of wrong. And I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt. So am I right? Am I wrong? Are you a CTT fan? The only thing this guy wants to do is give me an ulcer and a concussion, and I'm going to go bash my head through a brick wall now and paint it red with my blood so that way maybe I can get the ignorance spewed out of this idiot's asshole of being out of my head. So you guys know what to do. Comment, like, subscribe, Indie Gala, Patreon, all that stuff down below. I'll catch you on the flip. Peace.